What else? So, if we're talking about challenges and pitfalls, I'm gonna be very cryptic around this because I have material as needed. Let's just say, most, as Cameron said, a lot of our projects are actually with architects and GCs as opposed to more of a DIY or someone who's really going to roll up their own sleeves and help. Although he's done both and we've done both. So the major problem we find, the biggest problem we find with projects is people, and this is not exclusive to homeowners or architects or builders. It's just people who have no idea what they're doing, of course. And where that really falls down the most, because people can be educated about, the detailing. We do a lot of work up front, like Cameron, to set the tone with builders, architects, owners about what's needed for equipment, supplies, protection, all these things, and framing in particular, all the other subs that are going to interact with what we end up doing. But the biggest problem almost always is project management. And it's either bad communication or bad or lack of skills. And so when we're talking with a homeowner and we're vetting people, we're saying, okay, most people want to cut out an architect, cut out a general contractor, save money by doing those things, and also do it themselves, maybe get some, hands-on experience and really feel good about what they're doing. It's amazing process to build with hemp, but they lack, the project management skills. They don't know what it means to be the hub of the wheel, to drive the train. Like, you might have some organizational skills, but you also have to really push people. If you're project managing or trying to get things done on a timeline and everything stacks up. So there are, timeline issues that end up getting impacted, and material supply and all these other things that can suffer because someone just isn't organized, but they think they want to save money. Sometimes it ends up costing them more money. We had this happen on a project where we gave a quote to someone in Vermont for $25,000 worth of plastering by some of the best plasterers in New England. They were kind of like, I don't know, maybe we'll try and do it ourselves. And we're like, you know what? We'll help you do it yourselves. What do you need? We'll train you. So we trained them for 3 days, got them started. The downstairs where we trained them looked great. The upstairs, they forgot to do certain things afterwards, like what we told them. And on top of that, there were other issues around the framers and other things. So we're going back to do it for more now at this point to fix the upstairs where they did. And so you got to just be careful. Like, sometimes you do need to hire the pros, or at least get a little jump start, which is a lot of times we're going to project manage just for 2 days all over the country, or do a training 2 to 3 days in Minnesota, Texas, Missouri coming up. So just to kind of get people started on the right road, and then we can walk away and know that they're kind of going to get in a rhythm and go. So those we were on a project where the first floor was out of plumb by 1 story, out of plumb by 1 inch to 1.5 inches in different spots. So we had to make wasn't the Hempcrete subcontractor's job to tell them to come along and pull the whole building straight. The architect did not put any bracing in the building, so we got wood ourselves, put in bracing. Cameron and us and Tim and others end up doing a lot of things to make sure that what our finished product is correct. And sometimes if the foundation isn't right, the frame's not right, everything dominoes if you don't get certain foundational things right. So that's a big piece of what we run into. And occasionally general contractors or architects who just are really full of themselves or don't really believe in the mission that the owner or the Hempcrete folks are into. So they just don't really want to work for it or understand, learn a new thing. There's a little bit of that in the industry. Also, just talk about walls, just as Cameron brought it up. And this gets to cost a lot of times. Like, people want to know what the cost is, but then they say, the natural question is, what are you comparing it to? And so from top left, which could be any kind of cavity fill material, it looks like dense packed cellulose the way I've drawn it, but with a sheathing and a cladding system over that happens to be a zip system, so the air barrier membrane is built into that sheathing. But so that's a very simple, low cost thing, not very high performing, and that's something that's not even typical. I mean, a lot of times that's fiberglass or something even cheaper. So moving left to right, you start to the evolution has been to try and figure out how to get more R value on the wall if we only have a 2x4 or 2x6 cavity. And that is now, with some type of continuous insulation on the outside. In this case, this looks like I drew in polyisocyanate or some type of foil face foam. And the codes are now going to, you can't just get away with a 2x6 with something in it. Anyway, you're going to now have to put some level in most colder climate zones, some form of continuous insulation, meaning it's going past the studs, so there's no bridging where the studs are the weak point. But that foam is not great. You move to the next slide, the third one from the left. That is like a Gutex or a Styka, which is a wood fiber board. So cellulose is a carbon storing material. Wood fiber board is another carbon storing material. You might have a smart membrane shown in yellow, and then your rain screen, your clad system with strapping and some type of siding. And then Cameron mentioned double stud. We've done double stud for hempcrete. I'm thinking I probably drew that as a hempcrete double stud, given the color, but that could be for a cladding system, as Cameron mentioned, you don't have to render it. You don't have to finish it with plaster. That could be a clad system on the outside. And then the bottom three are all just sort of more what we would think of as the traditional center frame or exterior frame hempcrete that could have been sprayed or cast, depending on whether you have permanent formwork or temporary formwork, and whether that formwork is all on the inside or outside if you're spraying, all on one side, or moved up as you go for cast. And the right side is just some blocks that were the Just Biofiber blocks. I just drew them because they were really fun to draw. But that is the only, really one of the few actual structural hempcrete blocks or systems. Other than that, hempcrete is not relied on to be structural. Anyway, just a few slides on that. And then the only other thing I would say when people talk about cost, because this was part of I think the theme for tonight was, well, what do you want? Right? Do you want low electric bills or utility bills? You can do that, but that doesn't mean the building is healthy. Do you want indoor air quality? Then you need to start thinking about like what they did at the PA Hemp Home that Cameron was talking about. You really need to think about all of the things going into the building and whether or not they contribute to indoor air quality or not. Do you want durability? Do you want the Parthenon or Pantheon or whatever that one is down at, do you want it to last 500 years? Do you want it green? Whatever that means to everybody, or do you want to actually certify it green? In which case you are getting some sort of programmatic way of looking at all the things that go into the building, and some are more rigid and stringent than others. Or do you just want peace and quiet, like in the middle, and a sense of grounding, like a hempcrete building can provide? I'm going to end there just because it seems like we've got a lot of other things to get to.